Question over here is, a neutral atom has 2k electrons, 8l electrons and 6m electrons. Predict its atomic number. Okay. So we are having 2 electrons in k shell, 8 electrons in l shell and 6 electrons in m shell. So total of how many electrons do we have? Total number of electrons. Total number of electrons is equals to 2 plus 8 plus 6. It is equals to 16 electrons. We need to predict the atomic number. Now the total number of electrons in a neutral atom is equals to the number of protons. Total number of electrons for a neutral atom is equals to the number of proton. Therefore, number of proton is equals to number of proton is equals to 16. Okay. Now the number of protons in the nucleus of an atom is actually equals to its atomic number. Number of proton in the nucleus of an atom is equals to it's actually equals to its atomic number, and we represent atomic number with Z. Hence it is equals to 16. So the atomic number is equals to 16. Hence the question is asking the atomic number only. Predict its atomic number. Option number D is the best suited answer for this question. Question over here is, the relation between below compounds is. The relation between below compounds is. Okay. So over here we are given with 2 different compounds, but the base compound is same, and the substituent attached, that means the halogen substituent, the chlorine attached, they are different. But we do have 2 chlorine atoms. I mean to say, we do have the same base compound and 2 chlorine atoms. Yeah, the positions of 2 chlorine atoms attached to this base compound is different. That's the case. But I can say one thing over here, that these 2 particular compounds given to us have same molecular formula. Same molecular formula, same molecular weight. Okay. But the positions of the substituent attached to the main carbon skeleton is different. And yeah, the isomers with the difference in the positions of multiple bond, that multiple bond can be double bond or triple bond, functional group, alkyl substituent or any other substituent attached to the main carbon skeleton. The isomers with the difference in the positions of multiple bond, functional group, alkyl substituent or any other substituent attached, okay, to the main parent chain, to the same carbon skeleton, those particular isomers are actually referred to as positional isomers. So I'll straight away say that these 2 particular compounds are having a relation of positional isomers. These 2 are actually positional isomers, because over here, if I talk about the first compound, the 2 chlorine atoms are para to each other. Okay, that means the positions of 2 chlorine atoms are 1, 4. The first chlorine atom is present at the first position and the second one is present at the fourth position. Wherein if I talk about the second compound, over here, let me take this as the first position of the chlorine atom, and this will be the third position of the chlorine atom. So the position of chlorine atom has been changed in the base compound, and hence these 2 particular compounds, they are known as positional isomers. Positional isomers. So the relationship between those particular 2 compounds are positional isomers. Option number A is the absolute right answer. They are not chain isomers, because in chain isomers, carbon skeleton needs to be different. The number of carbon atoms in the main parent chain needs to be different. They are not functional isomers, as well as they are not identical. Only and only option number A is the right answer to this question. Question over here is, what are the minimum number of carbon atoms required for alkanes, alkenes and alkynes to exhibit positional isomerism respectively? Before we go with the solution part, let us understand what do you mean by positional isomerism. I'll say the isomers will represent positional isomerism, or you can say the isomers which will actually possess the phenomena of positional isomers will be having the same molecular formula. They'll be having the same molecular formula, same molecular weight, okay, same carbon chain length. That means same parent chain, same carbon skeleton for the parent chain, I mean to say, okay, the length of the parent chain will be same. And yeah, I will say positions of the substituents, positions of the multiple bond, or positions of the functional group, or positions of the alkyl substituent, or position of any other substituent attached to the parent chain will be varying. Okay, so there will be actually difference in the positions of the multiple bond, functional group, alkyl substituent, or any other substituents attached to the main parent chain having the same carbon chain length. Okay, so if we are having two compounds and we want to actually go for the positional isomerism, their parent chain should have the same number of carbon atoms. Yeah, the positions of the multiple bond, functional group, alkyl substituents, it can vary, but the chain, carbon chain length will be the same. Remember this thing. Okay, if I just go with the alkane part, and first of all let me check it for butane. That means the compound having 4 carbon atoms, and let's take it as a butane only. So it's 1, it's 2, 3 and 4. 4 carbon atoms. Okay, now if I just modify something in this particular butane, the alkane part, what I'm going to do is, if I just want to have positional isomer, I need to have the same carbon chain. That means the carbon chain should be of 4 carbon atoms only, as in this particular case. But the position of the alkyl substitution will be varying. So if I just draw this particular thing, 1, 2 and 3 and this is isobutane and this is N-butane. Okay, so they are chain isomers, but they are not positional isomers. So we'll not have positional isomerism taking part for the alkane butane. But yes, if I just go with the one particular thing, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, and I'm having methyl substituent placed over here. This is my methyl substituent placed over here. And again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1 methyl substituent placed over here. Now tell me, these two particular alkanes will be exhibiting which particular type of isomerism? I'll straight away say they will be exhibiting positional isomerism. How come? See, this is the main parent chain having 5 carbon atoms, and the methyl substituent is placed at this particular position. This is the second position, wherein this particular carbon chain, the parent chain, consists of 5 carbon atoms, and now the methyl substituent is placed at the third position. So there is difference in the position of the alkyl substituent, but the carbon chain is of same length for these two particular different compounds. Hence I'll just say they are having same molecular formula, same molecular weight, same carbon chain length, but different positions of the alkyl substituent attached. So let's count out how many carbon atoms do we actually require for the alkanes to exhibit positional isomerism. How many carbon atoms? 1 carbon atom, 2 carbon atom, 3 carbon atom, 4, 5 and 6 carbon atom. Okay, so basically we require 6 carbon atoms for an alkane to exhibit positional isomerism. Hence option number A and B, they are out of the race. We are left with C and D. Talking about the minimum number of carbon atoms required for alkenes to exhibit the positional isomerism. So if I just go with the part, in case if I just talk about propene, it's carbon, carbon, double bond, carbon. Okay, and if I just substitute this multiple bond over here now, carbon, double bond, carbon and then carbon, these two particular compounds are identical. They are not going to exhibit any isomerism, because you can just see over here at the first position I'm having a double bond, and over here also at the first position I'm having a double bond. So what's the difference? But yes, I can talk about but1 and but2, where there is difference in the positions of the multiple bond. So it's like this, it's but2, and if I just talk about this particular compound 1, 2, 3 and 4, it's but1. So over here the double bond is present at the second position, and over here the double bond is present at the first position. This is but1, and this is but2, alkene. So there is difference in the position of multiple bond, the double bond, having the same carbon chain length. So it will be exhibiting the positional isomerism. So for alkene, we require at least 4 carbon atoms to exhibit the positional isomerism. Same is the case with alkyne. So it's C, triple bond C, okay, then single bond C and then C. Okay, so if I just go with the 3 carbon atoms and now C, single bond C and triple bond C, these two particular carbon atoms, these two particular molecules, they are exhibiting no isomerism. Why? Because they are identical basically. Okay, but yes, if I attach one more carbon atom over here, okay, and one more carbon atom over here, so the chain length is actually, parent chain length is same. The parent chain is consisting of 4 carbon atoms, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 and 4, but the position of multiple bond has been changed. Over here the triple bond is present at the first position, and over here the triple bond is present at the second position. So yeah, for alkyne part also we require 4 carbon atoms, minimum 4 carbon atoms to exhibit positional isomerism. Hence I'll go with 6, 4 and 4. Option number D is the best suited answer for this question. Question over here is the correct order of the metallic character is. The correct order of the metallic character. Over here we are given with some of the elements as potassium, magnesium, aluminium, boron. Okay. So one thing I want to tell that this metallic character is actually based on the ionization energy thing. I mean to say, ionization energy decreases. If ionization energy decreases, okay, it means electropositive character is increasing. Why? Because tendency to lose electron increases, tendency to form cation increases, and hence the metallic character increases. More is the electropositive character for a particular element, more will be its metallic character, because ionization energy has been decreased for that particular part. Potassium is a alkali metal. Magnesium is the alkaline earth metal. Aluminium and boron, they belong to group 13 basically. Okay, so if I just talk about along the period, when we are moving from left to right in a periodic table, what is happening? Ionization energy is increasing. If ionization energy is increasing along the period, that means tendency to form cation decreases, electropositive character decreases. That means metallic character decreases when we are moving from left to right in a periodic table. Okay, but when we are moving down the group, what is happening? Ionization energy decreases. It means electropositive character is increasing. It means tendency to form cation increases. It means metallic character increases. Which means that potassium, being the alkali metal, is having the high amount of metallic character. Then comes the turn of magnesium, belonging to alkaline earth metal. Then comes the turn of 13th group, aluminium and boron. So for aluminium and boron, I can say first boron comes, then aluminium for 13th group. When we are moving down the group, ionization energy is decreasing, which means electropositive character is increasing. Tendency to lose electron increases. Cation tendency, cation forming tendency increases. Metallic character increases. So metallic character of aluminium is greater than boron. And yeah, potassium is the highly electropositive element, so it will be having or possessing the high metallic character. Therefore, option number D is absolutely the best suited answer for this particular question. Question over here is, what is the density of wet air in grams per liter which have a partial pressure of water of 22.5 torr at 1 atm and 300 Kelvin. I repeat, we need to calculate out the density of wet air. So wet air means is actually the mixture of dry air plus water vapor. If I talk about wet air, so it is equals to dry air plus water vapor, okay, which have a partial pressure of water of 22.5 torr at 1 atm pressure and 300 Kelvin. Vapor pressure of water is 30 torr and the average molar mass of air is 29 grams per mole given to us. Okay, so over here basically, first of all, if I just talk about which particular concept we are going to apply, it's Dalton's law of partial pressure basically, which actually talks about that the total pressure of the mixture is actually equals to sum of the partial pressure of each of the constituent gases. That means, so over here basically applying that particular concept, what I can say over here, directly we can find out the mole percentage of water vapor in air. Mole percentage of water vapor. I'm talking about the mole percentage of water vapor in wet air basically. So if I just talk about the mole percent, okay, of H2O vapor, okay, in wet air basically, it will be equals to how much? Over here we are given with that the partial pressure of water is 22.5 torr at 1 atm, and 1 atm is equals to 760 torr. So basically it will be equals to 22.5 divided by 760, okay, multiplied by 100. So when you will calculate this particular expression, mathematical expression, very easy to calculate, apply the approximation, you will get the answer, and your answer will be equals to 2.96. So the percentage, mole percentage of water vapor in wet air is equals to 2.96. Okay. Now if I just talk about the molar mass of wet air, if I talk about the molar mass of wet air basically, molar mass of wet air, it will be equals to the molar mass of dry air plus molar mass of H2O vapors. That is the thing. Okay. Over here in the question we are given with the average molar mass of the air 29 grams per mole. Now if the mole percent of H2O vapor is 2.96, then what is the mole percent of dry air? If the mole percentage of water vapor, H2O vapor in wet air is 2.96, then what is the mole percent of dry air? It will be equals to 100 minus 2.96. Okay, it's actually in the percentage I'm talking about. So it will be equals to 97.04%. Okay. Now what is the molar mass of wet air? Given the average molar mass of air is 29 grams per mole. So we'll calculate it like this: 29, okay, molar mass of the air, average molar mass of the air multiplied by the percentage, mole percentage of the dry air, which is 97.04, okay, plus the mole percentage of vapor in wet air, which is 2.96, multiplied by the molar mass of water, which is 18 grams per mole, divided by 100. So this will be the molar mass of wet air. When you will calculate this out, you will get the answer as 28.67 basically. Okay. Now we also know the relationship between density and P pressure. Okay. So it is actually equals to P is equals to, if I just talk about density, okay, so basically it's PM is equals to dRT. That means density is equals to PM by RT. Okay, density is equals to PM by RT. Fine. What is the P pressure given to us? P pressure has been given to us as 1 atm. Okay. What is the molar mass of wet air? It is 28.67 grams per mole. Okay, fine. Divided by R. What is the value of R in terms of atm? If we calculate 0.082 liter atm. Okay. Mole per Kelvin, and T temperature is equals to 300 Kelvin given to us. You can just see it's 300 Kelvin given to us. Substituted, and when you'll just solve this out, see mole cancels with mole, Kelvin cancels with Kelvin, atm cancels with atm, we are left with gram per liter. So density is going to come out as 1.164 grams per liter when you'll just solve this expression out. Apply the approximation and get your answer, and you'll achieve your answer as 1.164. In approximation, what you can do, take 28.67 as 28.7 only, and 0.082 as 0.08 only, and you'll get the answer. So D density is equals to 1.164 grams per liter. Hence option number A is the right answer to this question.